All right, good morning, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is the True Storytelling Check-In for Creativity 202, Lesson 20, November 6, 2022, the Euro session. And we'll start with our ritual check-ins in the order in which I see you on the screen. I see Chun Long. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Yeah, all good. I have a snowy weeks. Snow, couple hours, sun come out, couple hours, then snow. Right now it's in the snow period. Oh,
Tom Hardison, how are you?
Doing well. We are fortunate to have a day of sun in between clouds and
Wow,
rain. And so looking forward to getting outside in a bit. Yeah.
nice,
Uh-huh.
nice. Ernie, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you. I hope my microphone is working this time. And beautiful day here in Missouri, and so all is well. Thank you.
Nice. Tom 1, how are you?
Good morning. Fine. It's been a windy last couple days, but it calmed down today. Um, it's sunny, nice day. I was out with the dogs looking at the downed trees, and we had a good morning. So, aho.
Very good. Sonal, how are you?
Thank you. Very well, thank you. Busy week. Always good to see you guys on a Sunday. So, yeah, great.
And Jeff?
Yeah, all good over here. It's been busy week and a very rainy week over here in London. Sun came out about an hour ago as we were just coming back home, and so I had to pop back out for a bit of an extended walk just to suck it in. Because I think it's going to be another couple of rainy days to come. But other than that, all good over here.
Very good. And Kyun, bring us home.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. I just took my son for a contact lens fitting. Well, this is the third time now. So now he's passed. He's managed to put all of them in, take them out. They have to do it three times before they pass them. Very different from my day, I think. I can't even remember whether there was a technique. But anyway, yeah, all good. Good to make it.
But my eyes are so sensitive, I conceptually cannot see myself wearing contact lenses. The thought of touching my eye
Yeah.
terrifies me. I'm psychologically never able to do that. Well, all good here in Kansas. I had a very good session with the super traders yesterday from the Tharp Institute on a coaching framework and how we think about teaching, coaching, and mentoring, and some of the lessons that we've learned in the bar by bar trading and in the nightly podcast coaching sessions, and why I think that kind of ritual attention to detail, that relentless focus on where the work is being done in the workshop, in the gemba is the Japanese name for that. Why I think that's absolutely essential to deep understanding of your systems and self, and how it helps you develop the coach's eye, learning to see your own performance through the disinterested point of view of a coach, creates a bit of standoff between you and your trade. If you can learn to look at yourself through a coach's eye after the trade, then you can actually be your own self-managing trader. But then if you can bring that mentality into the trade as you're performing, it actually gives you a little insulation against the emotions that are generated by the trade. And so I wanted to give you guys an alert that hour and 45-minute session had some gems in it. The session is listed in the as a like an interlude in the uh, True Story check-ins in the Creativity 202. So be on the lookout for that. I think it was really well done, if I'm being honest. So everything's really good here for me, and got some soccer to play this afternoon. Weather's shaping up nicely, so it's going to be a pretty good day at the Long family. And this will move us into the True Story Circle with the sounding of the gong. So let's be ready. Here we go. And here we go. Tom Hardison.
Well, good morning and good afternoon. So predicting and breaking it into its subcomponents was really useful for me. The anticipating what's going to happen and then letting go of that anticipation. So often I anticipate and then I begin to commit to an action and a direction. And it happens in my Aikido practice. It happens in my trading. It happens in all parts of my life where I anticipate something and predict what's going on and then discover, no, that's not the case. And then the challenge is, how long do I hold on to that afterwards? So I really enjoyed Ken's video section out of this today. And what it brought to mind for me is all my trades will fail. It's just when. And so how much do I want to give back? Whether it's a gain or a loss, how much am I giving back from that initial entry? And wherever it got to. That might help me as a way to just let go of expecting something out of it, to just know it's going to fail and manage it to get the most I can out of it once I'm in it.
Chun Long.
Good morning, good afternoon. As usual, start with my work in progress. My word of last week is a twist. It's meaning twist my game plan, twist my life plot. What I did is I made a thorough plan for 2 weeks, kind of a after action review to summarize what I have learned so far. How do I progress in next 2 months by the end of this course in January 2023? How to revise my game plan and the life plan. The outcome is this. So the planning work take me almost full day just to think about it. What do I really want to do in these 2 weeks? For that, I watched some early sessions video of Creativity Tool 2 and read the course introduction section carefully. So think about why I take this course from the beginning and what and how to improve my learning just by take this course. More importantly, how and what I should learn from all of you there's a really good teachings by the story you tell every day. I mean, all of you. So the next one, I revised my objectives of work in progress. So when I start this lesson, I define my objective very loosely, just to learn, from Ken, learn how to trade, then become how to manage my exit. Then it's become, how to ruthlessly manage my risk. That's what I getting clear about what I want to do. The next thing, I go back to review Ken's glossary in details the fourth time, from word by word. So the thing is, whenever I review a term, it make me think something else. Let's see, there's a term 5DD. I have to go to the system description, say, hey, what is 5DD? That's actually take time. So it take a really long time to review the glossary again. Then I found a document talk about the sideways quiet channel pattern as a system. Then I think about a system I learned from others called Bollinger Band squeeze. Also, he called that BB gun. It's really a good system I traded a couple months ago. I did a thorough back test. I did a back test 900, more than 900 trades. It's a really good system. And then I think, how do I use Ken's, RLCO and Bollinger Band, this framework to look at that? What is the similar? What is the difference? How to approach the same trading questions with different, framework. That's what I did. And also try to set up a screening process with stock charts, which I use for my charting. Then I go on to review the BMR system and the ETF2 rules. That really helpful for me to, it just helped me to understand the framework. Or, what kind of setup I learn I can use in my trading, what filter may be good for my trading. I also think, maybe I can actually trade it. Then the next thing, I quickly review all those swing trading rules, because every day is in Ken's daily report. I have to understand, if I don't trade them, I can use them as a trading signal generator. So that's why I want to review that. So doing all this, the last week, what I found out, I didn't follow my plan. In my plan, I have some action item I need to check out. I didn't check any of them. So doing all of I said, didn't check out my action plan. That's interesting how the plan works. But I think what I did is really, worthwhile, valuable things to review. That's about my work in progress. Yeah, today's lesson is really good one. The video, Ken's video, I actually reviewed that maybe a couple of weeks ago. I had a Cornell notes about that, so it's easier for me to review again. So the first thing I want to say, Ken's version Cornell Notes is really, really useful. Now, I didn't use Word, I used Notion. The Notion is a database. It's a more useful, I think it's more powerful to take notes. I'll watch the video again, reinforce my learnings and applications in my simulating trading. So I do understand, you know, the limitations of simulated trade, but it's really helpful to, you know, to watch how the pattern formed, the SSC, collapsing dragon, kata 2, all those things. You know, the limitation is really different sense of time and how to manage the trade. The real trade will not wait me to think, but simulated trader give me time to think. I really want to read the code, one sentence from today's lesson. I think it's really helpful for me to understand the code is code to prepare for conflict. You therefore have to practice anticipating quicker. And you also have to practice forgetting faster too. Because the longer you hang on to a prediction that doesn't pan out, the more it keeps you from being open to what's actually unfolding in front of you and of course. You know, that make me thinking, you know, when I do the simulating trading, you know, I thought, okay, the price will go up. So I frame a long entry, but that never panned out. I watch the price go down and go away from the price. I didn't have a trade and it's keep going. Then I hate myself. That kind of feeling come out. So that's, you know, today's lesson teaching me. The next thing I learned from today's lesson is Ken's standard trade process questions. There's 11 questions like, what do you say, what could do, you know, where could stall. So that's one page, 11 questions is very pertinent to today's lesson. That's a superb application of today's lesson. You know, how to predict, how to anticipate, how to, you know, let it go and frame a new trade. Really, really good. You know, when I write all those, I feel really grateful to Ken. You know, that's one page, 11 questions, really, really brilliant. Nobody teach like that. You know, many people teach a system. This is the entry rule. This is the future rule. This is the exit rule. How do you do it? I don't think they talk about how to do it. But that's one page standard trade process question, 11 question, really go to the earth, teaching me how to trade. Thank you, Ken. I hope.
Ernie.
I really feel a lot like what Chun Long had just said. I agree 100%. And from the videos of last week and this week, Ken is great even when he's not feeling well. Those two videos were really good. And in preparation for my response to this week's lesson, I came up with 3 potential words for the day: conflict, time, and boxes. And I'm going to go with boxes because of the trader exercise. The exercise asks, what are my key learning insights? I start with TC 2000 on my monitor. That's a box with all the prices from the stock that I'm looking at. And in the lesson, we started with an entry price. And why we have that entry price is really irrelevant. It's what's going to happen next that's important. And I really like the idea of drawing the 1-hour box above and below my entry price and making my first goal being no lose dinner for 2. And I don't have the luxury of time to wait very long for that to happen. And because if it doesn't happen, well, then that just means the trade becomes a collapsing dragon. And but I really liked that we're now concentrating on the 1-hour box above the entry price, and that so I magnify that screen in TC 2000, and it gets my full attention. And I've been working on that in the past week, and it was really neat to have that approach. So I'm looking at that at those prices, and I still have to find the lesson for the about the 5 prices, the 5 exits. I'm sorry, and I have to find that. But it was really neat coming up. So in that one box, my 1-hour box, I've got no lose dinner for 2, and knowing how important that was, coming up with my average win. I have to work on that a little bit, but I do have kind of a preliminary one. So I was using that, making that really kind of important, and saying that once I got above that, you don't want to go below your average win, because naturally it's going to mess up your average. So I was really working on that, and it was really neat to see that come into fruition for me anyway. So again, I can't. I'm really in debt to Kenan for what he's doing. And the thing that's kind of amazing to me, I went through that lesson back in March, and then doing it today, or not today, but this week. It's really interesting. It's like, why didn't I see that the first time I looked at this? Why didn't I see it the second time I looked at it? But so whenever Ken has talked about certain things being important, and that you want to look at this thing over and over again, for me, it really is true. It's finally sunk in. It took a while, but it's just amazing that that happens. So I really enjoyed the lesson, and it was especially the video. It was really good. I was going through the exercise about observing a meeting involving people that you don't know. So I was trying to figure out, how do I do that? I tried C-SPAN, and that didn't really work. It's really good to watch if you want to take a nap. And then the other discovery that I had was there are 3 of them. I didn't know that. But anyway, that didn't work. But I thought about meetings that I used to have when I worked at the university, and the thing that was interesting to reflect back on it. Usually when we had I had a friend of mine, his son asked him what he did for a living, and he always said, I go to meetings. It was, and whenever I was working, it was a big part, being part of the meetings, but, and didn't like them, really and truly. I mean, they were okay. You got to meet people, especially like we have multi-campuses in Missouri. We'd go to Columbia, meet with the people there, and all the campuses would get together for the, the accounting, financial people. We would all have our meetings, and we're meeting with the vice president of finance, and we talk about all the different things, coming up with new accounting systems, things like that. They were always relaxing, especially the overnight meetings. and they were sort of casual, but I started to realize how important those meetings were. And also, we're all working together. We all have similar goals, but there is conflict. And I didn't appreciate that for the longest time, because we're funded by the state. In Missouri, the Columbia campus, Mizzou, is the flagship campus. And they also have the central administration, so that, when we get our funding, that's going to be allocated to different places. And it gets lost in the fact that we are competing even among ourselves for that funding. And in Columbia, the Columbia campus, it's now run, it has a chancellor. The central administration has a president. There's a president for the University of Missouri, and now that's been combined. So we're always told that that the one leader can lead the main campus as well as the other campuses. And you really know that's not true. There's going to be a bias, and but you have to handle these things in a nice way. You also have to respect that that's our boss. So it's interesting that you really have to. There is a slight conflict. We are competing for dollars, and if you can't lose that fact. So it was good to reflect on it. It reminded me of old times, and it also reminded me how slow I was to pick up on that the meetings, you have to be careful, but you have to be professional. That's really what it is. It's a professional relationship, and I wasn't supposed to lose sight of that, and which it applies to investing. It's impersonal. You don't want to, you want to keep that objectivity and remember what the goal is, and that's to have successful trades. But in doing the exercise, or when I was doing this stuff like this week, I really appreciated the fact that I do want to make money, and getting to no lose dinner for two is important, but it was also important to do it the right way. So the fact that I didn't get to no lose dinner for two, that's not a big deal. The big deal is, did I get out when I was supposed to get out? I wasn't supposed to wait for the magic to happen. The magic better be there, and I have to get out. That I really finally picked up on that from the video as well, and that was really great. And then finally, one thing that I wanted to talk about that I thought was amusing, I thought that doing the sporting event, yesterday I went over to a friend's house, and group of guys, we all got together. We watched Mizzou play Kentucky. So I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and try to ask them, about the prediction. What do they think is going to happen next? Well, we all do that. Everybody's got an opinion about who's doing well. The quarterback's doing awful, Drinkwater. The coach is doing terrible. So we're all, because we're losing. That's one of the things that's happening. So it wasn't, we were really going through and having our discussions with everything. We got close to the end of the game. One of the things that was going on is that we thought the quarterback kept watching the sideline. It's like, why isn't he watching what's in front of him, but he's looking over at the coach, which is important. But they do this a lot. And I didn't pick up on that, but somebody else did. And then the other thing was, it got to close to the end of the game. Kentucky was leading, I think it was 21-17, 4 points. And they have to punt. And there's about 2.5 minutes left in the game. And so when the ball is hiked to the punter, it goes sailing over his head. And so they're on the 40-yard line. The ball goes almost to the end zone. And so when the punter runs back and picks it up, we think that he's probably just going to run, go into the end zone, get a safety. It's going to mean the Missouri's behind by 4 points. They'll be behind by 2 points. And then Kentucky can wait it out or whatever. But the guy didn't do that. The punter, he runs back, grabs the ball, runs upfield. So we're thinking that he can be tackled. He's he's way outside of where he's supposed to be. And so when the punter runs up to close to the to where he was, he then goes in and he tries to punt the ball. But those poor Missouri players, I mean, they thought it was fair game, so he was tackled as he's trying to do that. And naturally, Missouri gets penalized for roughing the punter. And that we're all thinking, how can he be protected when he's run 50 yards? And how is Missouri supposed to know that he can't be tackled when he's running all over the field? But we lost the game. But it was still kind of fun to try to predict that. And we had no idea that that was going to happen. That's we didn't see that as we thought the punter was in play and could be tackled. He wasn't. The rule says that he got back to the line of scrimmage or close to it, but he's in that protected area. So we all had our opinions, but it was fun to try to predict what was going to happen. And it was interesting to be so wrong. And so it was a fun exercise. I enjoyed it. So, and thank you again for the lesson. Aho.
Tom won.
Good morning. Predictions. The predictor. I was thinking about this. Well, during the week, this happened this week, and it kind of relates to predictions. Actually, I drive a truck during the day. So I'm driving a truck and I got to go do a delivery. I'm going down side streets. So after I finish, I'm coming up a side street and it's like just a two lanes of traffic. And I got to turn on the main street. And just as I'm getting up to the light to turn, this car shoots up on my right side. And as I'm turning right, if I'm going to finish turning, I did notice him. So I have to hit the brakes before I turn right because I probably would have smashed up his car. And then I get caught by the red light and he takes off. I didn't hit him or anything, but it's kind of like unpredictable. At least seems unpredictable, but it happens a lot. So you just got to be ready for it. So anyway, I'm sitting at this light and I'm thinking, oh man, I could have smashed his car. And still feel the anxiety of the situation. And actually, when the light turns green, I start turning right again. Well, as I'm turning right, I glance over my mirror, and there's another car on the right side trying to cut around me. So I slam on the brakes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to hit this car. And so anyway, I stopped her. He comes around my truck, and then he pulls over on his shoulder. I'm thinking I hit the car. I see his mirror was a little bit tilted in. It's one of those flexible mirrors. And I'm sitting there thinking, and the guy, he looks at the side of his car and then he takes off and goes down the side of the street. And I sit there and I'm like, oh, thankfully, nothing happened. And I go about on my day. But as I think about that, I mean, I like to think it was unpredictable, but I mean, at first one of the things that I'm realizing is that it wasn't that it was unpredictable. After the first incident, and I never got back out of my emotions. So, and the one thing that I could have did was plan for that next right turn. You look to your right, and before the light changes, double check and make sure nobody's there. So it seems very important as I related to the trading that, you go back, you reassess, and you get back to your zero state. Take the emotions out of your next move. which I could see that it would help a lot just to zero out and start from a new entry level. I'll put it that way. So as I was going through Ken's lesson, there was a lot of, one of the things I've been working on is standard entries and exits, and it eliminates the processing. I mean, this lesson made so much sense to me, that some of the things I haven't done. So, I mean, eliminate the thinking about the trade. You have a standard entry, which for me is the RLXD, and you enter the trade. Then yeah, I draw support resistance lines, and just to make sure I'm not in a let's say a rectangle, or so I don't get chopped apart, because that happens a lot. That seemed to happen a lot until I started following more of a system aspect to trading. So I want to make sure I'm not stuck. One of the exits I like to use, I mean, is the 1, 2, 3 exit. I just want a standard, and that's for a couple of reasons. I mean, when you have a tight range and you break out, then you have a small risk. But sometimes I notice the PSARs have very wide ranges between them. So so when I see a return, if I see the trade take off, and I don't want to give back a lot. I don't know. It's just my type of trading, that I see a large give back as something I don't want to do. So I'll stick to the standard 1, 2, 3 exit. And that's the way I like to trade. And during the process of trying to follow it, one of the things that the predictor takes out is it'll take out your ego. And predicting, I mean, I do it all the time. I mean, I'll do it in just my daily life. I mean, I think it's a natural thing for a lot of people to do. I mean, I was watching the election in Brazil, watching some of the things that go on in society. I used to watch wrestling and try to predict, oh, this guy's going to do this now, and this is going to do this. So I got pretty wrapped up in predictions. So as I went through the lesson, I think it brought up, one of the things about predictions is it's a big ego thing. And the one thing you want to do is take ego out of your trade, and ego out of not only your trade, but a lot of aspects of your life, because I think it causes I don't know, it causes like judgments almost, and holds you back. So so I did not trade Brazil. I mean, and I think one of the reasons was because I didn't do this lesson first. Because I mean, I didn't like what's going on in Brazil with the election. I mean, I understand a lot of things are political, and as a trader, you don't want to get wrapped up in one side of the trade, but you want to respond to your signals to stay in your trade, use your risk box, and you manage your trade properly, because it's not about prediction or being right. It's about making money. So one important thing I have been doing on the side, when I'm not able to trade with real money, I'll either put on a small amount just to be, I like to be the man in the arena, if you know what I mean. So I like to have a little bit on the trade, even if it's not 1 hour. I might just even trade 10 shares just to practice, and be ready for anything that happens, just to feel like I'm involved in the market. another thing that I heard this week, I don't know how it was about people talking about these really good coaches and their teams, and it's almost like the prevent defense when they're ahead by a large amount, and they just want to, just be safe. And one of the points they brought up is that, the really good coaches, they just keep playing. They play to win, and they don't hold back like that. They won't put in a prevent just to be safe. They'll keep playing the game. So one thing I found out about myself this week is I like to almost play prevent. So if I'm winning, rather than I want to take my winnings and then, okay, that's enough for the day. I still got half a day to trade. And I'm like, almost like, I don't know, maybe it's fearful, maybe it's not. I think it more is, I want to walk out with a profit rather than, which is normal, but I don't want to risk, I don't want to walk out with a loss after a winning morning. So I'll call my day early. And that's not the right way to play the game. So I want to be in the game the whole day. So that's one of the aspects of myself I got to work on. And I did learn that playing some sports this weekend. I was taking it easy, and I thought about that, and I said, no, you got to just play. And it kind of changed the aspect of the game. Made me work on myself, improve what I was doing, and learn more about myself. As far as I do like to predict, as I said, I do listen to some podcasts, and I like to predict when somebody's going to talk or somebody isn't. It's just one of the aspects of the things I do. But like I said, it's ego driven, and it's more important not to be right about it, and just pay more attention to content than it is to your ability to be right. Take the ego out of it and build on your fluidity. Being fluid in the market, working on practice on my entries and exits. I'll stay right now with the 1, 2, 3. I might use PSAR if later on. I'll just work on what I'm comfortable with right now. Maybe I'll stretch my comfort zone and work for the belly of the dragon if I have a large profit. One of the things that I did find in the video was about after a large, say like when to change, it was like when to increase your risk. I think Ken was using an 80-20 and on the way to approach your trade, 80%, and that then you're willing to lose if you have an 80%. Say you have a 1R, you're willing to risk 80%, or I'm sorry, 20% of it, and keep the other 80%. As you increase your gains, you could increase your risk. Like if you go to 2R, you could increase the risk to these. It'll still increase the risk level because the 20% is more until you get to comfortable with the amount that you will give back in order to increase your profits. It made a lot of sense, and I watched the video once. I was rewatching it the second time. I think it's very informative. But that's all I have today. So I hope.
Jeff.
All right. So I had a few ideas of what I would talk about, and then listening to all you guys, I got more ideas on things that I could talk about, and now I'm tempted to talk about a bunch of different things. So roll with me on this one. We'll cover off a couple of things that hopefully are relevant. One of them was Chunmong, right? One of the first things you said, you were talking about your word from last week, which made me think about my word from last week. And I was like, I forget what my word, oh no, it was signal. So signal was my word from last week because we were talking about signal and noise. And then I thought, isn't that funny? Because was it last night? I think it was last night. I was up late, and I was watching some YouTube videos, and I happened to, you know, when they suggest things to you, right? And this video looked interesting, and so I just had a quick look at it, and it was all about Fourier transformations. And I didn't know too much about Fourier transformations, but I know the term. And I was like, let me just watch this. Really, really good video. And just funnily enough, the whole thing is about identifying signal in the noise. So signal in my sort of RAS, as it were, from the week before. And I did happen to find something and just watch that through. And of course, it always gives you a couple of ideas. So just noticing that. With regards to this exercise, really enjoyed it. I mean, I always do, but it always brings up new things. One of the main things that occurred to me this time around is that Sonal is always predicting, way more than I do. And what I mean is, you know, running through the exercise about predicting things like, you know, like we might be watching a TV show and she'll be like, oh, that guy's going to get killed, or you know, that guy's messing around with whatever it might be. And a lot of times I'll be like, oh, can't you just wait? I kind of tend to just watch it and just let it unfold without really necessarily predicting. And you know what? I mean, more often than not, she's right, but that's not really the exercise, right? The exercise is actually just doing it and then being wrong or right, and then doing it again and again and again. And I realized that through doing that practice, she has just been, I don't know if naturally or just separately, just been honing that sort of skill, you know, sort of all along, which is mildly annoying, but that's okay. It's all very good for her. It also made me think about Denise Schul. A lot of you guys will be familiar with Denise Schul. I was lucky. I got to talk to her doing one of these STA chats, and she, you know, she says that, you know, we are always predicting or anticipating. So the brain is always anticipating in some way, whether we realize it or not. And it's almost like that. It's almost like a glitch in the matrix if what unfolds is not what we were anticipating, which kind of makes us sort of snap out of our little sort of normal pattern. I found it really interesting as well, this the idea of the ego always wanting to be right. And I'm just trying to find that little section here. So the idea being that, you know, what we want to be doing is making predictions, but, you know, the ego wants to be right on those predictions, but that's actually not the point here. And so it's trying to remember the point. And it makes me think about trades and then me doing sort of research and development work for, you know, trading systems and all of that sort of stuff. So when I've got my R&D hat on, I'm very happy to look at, you know, all of the stats and the trade histograms and the charts, and I can deal with, you know, the system results as a whole, and I can make all kinds of decisions about whether I think that's good or whether that's a tradable system and one that I want to run or not, which is all great. And then, but when it comes down to actually trading that system, so if the system's developer hat comes off and then say the rules-based discretionary trader hat goes on, who's going to implement that system, now all of a sudden, now the ego is involved because he wants to be right. And really all that kind of matters is that next trade, right? Or the trade that I'm currently in. Like, I want to be right on this trade every single time, right? Even though logically I know that that's not going to be the case. And actually it's pretty much out of my control. The ego is in there and still wants to be right, no matter how many years of trying to bash that guy out of it a little bit, you know? So just recognizing that that sort of happens. Something else that occurred to me was to do with like sort of the weather analogy. So there was a sentence in the exercise in the lesson, which is about accelerating that rate of prediction. And it says, which you do by tightening the time horizon. So reducing the time horizon and then focusing on the near-term predictions that can be tested quickly with feedback and then just as quickly discarded. And there's a lot in that one sentence for me. It made me think about weather predictions, right? We're pretty good these days at predicting the weather short term. In fact, we probably have been for a long time predicting short term, but predicting longer term is much more difficult and tends to change over time. And it's essentially the same thing probably with regards to markets, right? We're probably pretty good at predicting short term at least what the boundaries of normality are likely to be, as in like what the next bar, right? Where's the next bar, say maybe high or low, or where are we going to end up closing, that sort of thing. But whereas the slightly longer term, let's say like the 15-day forecast or the 15 bar forecast, is probably less clear. So just noticing the parallels there, and thinking about testing those predictions that we do, say for the next bar or for the next time period or whatever the near-term prediction, testing it quickly, getting the feedback, and then discarding it, as in forgetting it, right? And then that kind of got me thinking, well, do we really just forget it? And then there are ways in which we forget, and I mean I'll forget. Someone might mention this. I'll forget what happened in the morning by the afternoon. I can't remember the trades that I took, right? But there's still an overhang, and that kind of brought me into the next bit, which didn't come out until the exercise paragraph there. And specifically, it's the sentence that says, the long-term scorecard of your successes and failures will be retained by your brain's deep memory. Am I stealing your thunder?
No.
Okay.
It's all one.
And if you hold it in your near-term consciousness, it will inhibit your creative openness. So, at first I was thinking, well, okay, it's nice to be able to predict and then get it right or wrong, and it doesn't matter, and then just forget it and then predict again. And I'm thinking, well, we're losing information there, right? It feels to me like we should be learning a little bit from those predictions, and how can we, increase the probability of the prediction, being right or having a better result. And then it's answered right there in a way, right? So the brain is essentially storing at least the failures in that sort of deep memory. And so for me, that kind of comes out, I think, in terms of let's say if you're trading frequently, frequently during a session, and it depends on how much you guys do, but I think that there's, for me at least, I've always got even if I don't pay attention to the P&L very specifically during a session, I kind of tend to try not to. Even if I'm not looking at it, I know what it is in that deep memory, which isn't really that deep, right? It's only from today, but I got a little history there. I'm probably clinging on to if I've had a few losses, I know what they are, and I'm trying to kind of get that back. But I think the more important thing, than that is just the deep memory that's probably noticing those failures and then storing them away somewhere, and so that we can probably access that again, in future. So trying to help with that increasing the probability of those predictions being right in future. A couple more fun ones just as I wrap up here. The exercise number 2, which was kind of about a sporting event, and then watching guys and then trying to do some predictions on who's going to do what next, and all of that sort of thing. I kind of latched onto that one, and I was thinking about it from a skiing point of view. I'm a big skier, although I've not been so much recently, but more of a snowboarder, and you tend to go skiing with other people, not all the time, but you tend to go with groups and different groups, and I've done that, you know, many times, with all kinds of different people. And it's interesting when you go with guys that you know, and you sort of know how to predict their likely behavior. And then there's newer people, and you have to sort of flesh out, oh, okay, I got to learn what's the newer people, what are they going to do, how are they going to behave, and it comes down to sort of how, you know, how comfortable are they, how long have they been doing it for, you know, because sometimes people will be, you know, slower and much more, you know, just sort of exact in their nature, and they'll just wind their way down the hill in a very sort of predictable pattern. And you know, I know that my buddy is probably, he's always wants to be leading, so he's probably leading the way, and he kind of likes that role, and he'll be the guy going first and making sure like we're going to go a certain direction. Then he'll stop occasionally and you know, look back up and try to gather the herd back again. And I'm often the guy playing cleanup in the back. And number one, I don't know why, I think I kind of like to watch from the back, and I'm quite comfortable with my tools and just with my my abilities now, and so I'll just kind of watch everybody, and if somebody's kind of a bit slower or, you know, is having a tough time, I'll just make sure that they kind of go first, and then I'll just pelt it down the hill really fast, because I don't know, I just kind of like it, and I can't be asked to do stuff. And then there's other guys who will you know, just pop off the sides, and they're less predictable, and you know, they're looking for obstacles and things to jump off of, and that sort of thing. And I'm often that guy, but you know, there are others who will just really kind of just go out there and go for it, and sometimes in a very unpredictable fashion. I remember my buddy Andy Mower, I was going with him, and he was really good fun to ski with, but there was one occasion where he was way too fast and out of control, and he just tried to maneuver. Didn't work out as planned, and he ends up just slicing across the entire piece, like the entire ski run, which is fine, but is quite unsafe for other skiers. And he was fortunate, he didn't hit anybody, but he kind of came back up, and he's a really kind of posh English guy, and he came back up to me and he said, "Slightly controversial maneuver back there, matey." I thought, yeah, that's true. And okay, one last quick story that Tom One made me think about, talking about your incidents on the road. I was talking to my dad last weekend after a call, actually, and he's got I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of miles, you know, driving. He drives all the time, and he's very experienced, but he also, at least to me and to many other people who would just be watching him, it doesn't seem like he's paying attention a lot of the time, because his mind's always on other things, and you know, he'll shuffle around in his seat and look for something. So I'm always a little bit worried about him and whether he's like fully paying attention and stuff, because he does a lot of highway driving and that sort of thing. And he's got this his beloved Toyota van, which is like a 1980, what has he got? I think it's an 86 Toyota van, which we used to have them. He bought it new in 86, and then he didn't have it anymore. And then him and a bunch of buddies were sat around, and they were talking about their favorite car. And he was like, "You know what? My favorite car was that Toyota van." And it's this little tiny little space wagony thing that it's great, actually. It's cute. And you know, you don't see that many of them on the road anymore. And he went and found one in Seattle that been sat in a barn for 15, 20 years, and then had it shipped and restored the thing. And it's his little baby, and he drives it all the time. And anyway, so he's running down the highway on the way to the airport. He's an amateur pilot, so him and his buddies hang out down the airport on the weekends and stuff. So he's kind of heading down the highway, doing whatever he does, and he's following, you know, a pickup truck. And you could probably picture that he's in Florida, right? There's a bunch of sort of, you know, guys, there's a lot of pickup trucks, let's put it that way. And then in the back of the pickup truck, there's usually a bunch of stuff, right? And anyway, so he's kind of driving, and he normally drives a bit close to the people in front. I reckon he did that this time. And anyway, he's going along, and so the next thing he knows, he's looking, and a chain falls out the back of the pickup truck. And he's going, you know, 70, 80, you know, down the highway. And it's a big chain, like 20 feet of chain that's probably quite thick. And there was no time for him to react. And so he hits it. And he said the next thing he knows, he's in the air, and he's just like at least the front's in the air, and he doesn't know what's happened yet, and then bang, it comes down, and the chain ends up wrapping around one of the wheels, and he's just doing whatever he can to just kind of, land this spaceship now, right? And he manages to land it and to pull over sort of on the side of the road, and all in all, like, it didn't flip it or anything, which I was surprised. And it also, I kind of imagined that the chain would have wrapped around and beat the hell out of the outside and the paintwork and everything. But apparently that didn't happen. But I guess it came to mind because of predictions, right? And we're always predicting, and especially when we're on the road and we're doing something that's very familiar. And so we're just going down the road, and you don't always say, well, what am I going to do if there's something in the road, right? So you could think about that. And Tom, I'm sure you would have seen all kinds of occurrences, of, you see those, like, these 18 wheelers, right? Which, sometimes wheels just come off of that, or the whole tire comes off, and, the driver doesn't even know. It's just kind of bouncing down the road sometimes. I've seen that happen before. And anyway, yeah, so he was, so long story short, he gets out and he manages to, sort of like calm down. He said, if I haven't had a heart attack, then I'm probably doing okay. And so he gets to the side of the road, and then he's having to change the wheel, and it's on the driver's side, which is the side of the traffic. And he didn't quite get all the way off the road. Like, he didn't quite get all the way to safety by the sounds of it. And he had to go pull the spare out of the back, which is the original one from 40 years ago. And he goes and he manages to put that on, and he doesn't know what other damage is done yet, but he managed to undo the chain and get this all off somehow whilst all these cars are going by at 70, 80 miles an hour. And he gets a wheel on, and then he takes off, and he said, you'd never know that anything ever happened. The original spare, 40 years old, original tire, everything was just as it was before. The thing ran absolutely perfect. And he got to the airport, and he saw a couple of his buddies, and he told them the whole story. And the first thing they said was, did you get the chain? Because they're all dumpster divers. They recycle everything. And so Dad was like, no, I didn't get the chain. I threw it on the side of the road in disgust. Now, I'm pretty sure one of those guys went the next day and found that chain, right? Anyway, predictions. Aho.
There's an entire workshop in the text I just sent you guys about predictions, and the ego reward of being right is the single most powerful biological force. Nothing else is even close. So you need to know that. Be of the herd, but not in the herd. Yet be of the herd, you have to know how the herd is wired and what they are going to reliably do when they're surprised. They're going to run. It's what they do. Which way? I don't know. You get a large enough herd, and there's something running in every direction. So you just got to pick your optimum place to perform your skill. You get a large enough herd, something's going to run into that trap. Problem solved. Be of the herd, but not in the herd. So you must be able to adopt the disinterested mindset that separates you from the ego and the being right or not. That's what I mean by the science project, and just collecting data. That is the single biggest edge you could possibly ever have, until such time as human nature changes. That's the limit of that. That's the limit of that edge. As soon as people stop being people, and guess what? If you're using statistics to adapt to how the people are changing, you cannot possibly be out of connection with the herd, because the statistics describe the state of the herd now and forever. As long as we're herd animals and our nature might be changing slowly, statistics will keep you on the herd. Follow the herd. Be of the herd, but not in the herd. Dudes, that is a 20-hour weekend intensive workshop just to beat that into your head. Don't make me do it. I mean, seriously. That's why you got to listen to Huberman from Stanford on the dopamine and oxytocin cycle of hormones. Because the species is wired. I just got to say this. Just pardon me for talking, but the species is wired so that you have millions of little experiments all the time. The world is hard. Coming up with new ideas is hard. So DNA works by having millions of little experimenters who are reliably wrong because they're trying this little thing and it's, oh, that wasn't it. And you just learn to be resilient and keep going until you're dead. But if you ever predicted and got it right, the potential payoff of that, genetically speaking, is uncalculable. That could have been the fact that changes the entire pecking order of species and who's going to become the new apex predator. That's how powerful a new piece of information is. DNA doesn't even try to predict how valuable it is. It just says, holy smokes, we got something new. Absolute reward. Keep doing that and disseminate it through your little tribal communication system so we don't lose the tribal knowledge. That's the economic or the evolutionary advantage of our weak species, is that we are so socially constructed to be of the herd and in the herd and social acceptance, but driven by the ego to try to be right because the reward is so great that you never even remember all of the ones that you were wrong because you got a taste of being right. That's why people who are ever successful through luck early in their trading career are doomed to be traders for their entire life, because the persistent memory of that one moment will multiply. In fact, the longer the space between your big wins, the more powerful the memory of those things become and drives you even further. In fact, the more frequently you win, the less it means to you because you're just used to that. And then the novelty of losing gets your attention. It's like, oh, that's why guys like champions find it so hard to maintain. But if they lose, they come back like raging maniacs because they've discovered the connection to that primal spirit that drove them to be the champion in the first place. That's why they never want to quit, because each loss helps them rediscover that inner fire, which is what actually drives them. They want to be warmed by their own heat from the inside. That's why a loss is so powerful and why they find it so hard to quit and walk out on top. They can't do it because we're of that species. So the persistent edge consists of understanding that with your rational mind, but establishing procedures and processes that allow you to not be trapped to that flypaper, to be able to treat the trade as just one in a long series of making bricks. So you got to have good raw material. You got to frame your workspace safely with power tools. You got to follow procedures. I'm going to use improper language. Make a goddamn brick. One brick. Just make a brick. Then stack the brick on the pallet correctly. Then move the pallet to the work site. Then make some structure with bricks that withstands weather and the wolf. It allows you to store the grain that the gatherers and farmers are working so hard in the fields for. If you got to make a wall to protect them against the wolf, so be it. That's what you got bricks for. So your brain is a prediction machine. So what your brain does, and that's why you can listen to Huberman, every 1.8 seconds, your brain is making an updated prediction about what's happening next in the world. there's too much data to be open to all of it directly. The brain establishes mental models and feelings and emotions as a buffer against that continuous stream of information. And what it does is it creates a mental model of the world based on what it thinks is going to happen, and then it checks for exceptions. So your entire visual cortex is wired to detect movement against a static display. Your eyes are drawn to my moving finger because that's your visual cortex. Your eyes are drawn to my green shirt because it is different than the muddy background. And so your visual cortex drives your entire brain processing to understand the world. The very first thing that primitive optical systems do is detect shadow, the difference between light and dark. Because in the world, a shadow is danger. Because something just moved between you and the light source that wasn't there, and chances are, if it's moving towards you, it's coming to eat you. So your first reaction is fear and to move, the startle reflex. If you get startled and it startles you with the lion's roar, I've ever been in the zoo and listened to one of those bad boys when you're not expecting it. Holy mackerel. Freeze, kill. So the sensory overload, that's a 10 sigma event when you get surprised by a lion's roar. So the point is, what you said was very important about understanding the statistical definition of normal versus abnormal. 100% of the sniper's frame of reference is being able to distinguish between normal and abnormal, and then doing standard work in the normal space and then standard work in the abnormal space. That's it. So understand your visual cortex to find the distinction and learn to look broadly with unfocused vision in order to detect the movements and then stalk and establish the net and the boundaries and localize it until you're ready to strike. That's how a predator thinks. That's how a hunter thinks. And you got to remember that all those little motions could just be bait for the thing that is stalking you. You just keep those things in mind, and you will have 100% understanding of the important elements of biology and brain neurology in the way the herd thinks. Absolutely essential. 100% of the secret of success is understanding those ideas right there. And then being able to put that wedge between you and that herd animal brain. The herd animal has fear of getting away, and then it has overjoyed when it thinks it got away. Hooray, I got away. And then they run into the next ambush, and they are really shocked. You only got about 3 bursts of adrenaline in you before you are done. We know that in combat. How many times can you surge? 3 times a day. And then you are worthless. So you got to monitor your people's emotional and chemical states because they may be done. And you got to be able to recognize that in them and in yourself and in the price structure that tells you when those guys are done. That's what we would mean by capitulation at one end of the abnormal price action and elation. Hey, guess what emotions are found at those kinds of extreme moves? Is it capitulation or elation? It's both of them, because somebody is just in despair and capitulated. There's another guy that is absolutely elated and is not in the proper mental state to be able to frame the trade. So at the end of extraordinary moves that terminate in a range compression, that's the 100% of the secret of the max pain range compression. Because the max pain, you saw most of the herd is in absolute utter despair and it is compressed to suddenly a small little doji. That is the biggest shift in market psychology that you could ever possibly see. You went from a moment of absolute red Niagara and disaster to the tiniest little doji of indifference and absolute parity between buyers and sellers. Are you kidding me? You put an MMRB around that, you're set for life. That pattern alone, 100% set for life. That's one of the ways of operationalizing a compound critical state. But I'll tell you, if the max pain in that time frame is so extraordinary, you don't even need a compound critical state. The fact that it's a doji tells you that new buyers and sellers came in to change the entire psychology that was contained in that time frame that created the maximum pain. The very fact that there is a doji instantly tells you that all of the previous assumptions are off and that run is done and now it's in play. Now, I don't know who came in and caused it to stabilize. I don't know how big they are, but they were big enough to stop that run. Are they big enough to run it all the way back up? Or are they going to capitulate when the sellers come in with new ammunition? And it doesn't matter. I don't care which way it goes. I have found a compound critical state in the max pain range compression. It takes one slide to teach that idea. One slide and 10 minutes. I just did it. Don't ever forget that lesson. If you forget everything else, don't forget that lesson. How is your brain constructed, and how do you preserve that edge? It's the ability to place a buffer between your decision making and your craftsmanship and all of the embedded emotion of the herd in that compound critical state. That is the power of the no lose plus dinner for two. When you recognize that and feel the enormous release of satisfaction and just, whew, I'm not dead now, I'm not dead yet, instantly shift into craftsman mode, now go. You got to know that you just avoided an absolute disaster by getting to no lose plus dinner for two, because you took all of the negative consequences off the table for that trade forever. That's how important that is. And then from there, if you can then go from the state of absolute elation that I didn't get killed, that sense of existential relief, you know how good that feels? I hope you never have to feel that. But being in a position where you should have been killed and you didn't, man, is that any good? Okay, so what? Now, frame it and go. Be a pro. If you can do that, and then put that disinterested science project on there, hand that off to the manager, and then if it gets really good, add the sniper, done in one. Nothing else I ever will say is going to be better than that unless I come up with something better. But man, oh man, do you have to listen to that message 100,000 times. Because that is the emotional content of the 2-hour battle drill, which is the mindset of the craftsman as he's framing that. But the emotional content is what I just said, connected to your evolutionary brain. Don't you ever forget that. I'm probably just going to say aho, and I'm going to use that as, I guess that was my turn. I'm probably going to pair those two discussions. Because I think that's pretty important stuff. So, aho.
Cool.
Now, Kiana saying, what kind of nut house did I just step in front of? I just stepped in front of a bus. Go ahead,
Drinking
Ken.
from a fire hose.
Yeah, go ahead,
That
Ken.
was the lesson that was today. Actually, so now did you want to go, or can I go? Okay. I predicted, so now I was gonna go. So I failed. I got to reset and be ready to do my thing. Yeah, it's a really great. That's actually the video was great. So of course I started with prediction, and I kind of remembered somewhere deep in the memory that Van didn't like prediction when it came to trading, and so immediately I had a conflict. I was like, okay, what do I do here? Is predicting good? It's not good. Yeah, and so if you don't mind, I just want to share with you something. So you were talking about prediction and the game, and my son actually plays football or soccer, and so I've been to many of these games, and there's just there's a picture of a sign at one of these games, and I just want to kind of read it. It says, "Please remember, these are kids. 1, these are kids. 2, this is a game. 3, the coaches are volunteers. 4, the referee is human. 5, this is not the World Cup." So I think if you've been to one of these games, you find that the parents, man, they get seriously passionate. They think their sons or daughters are elite professionals. They think they should be, doing the run here, doing the tackle there, and it's the craziest thing you ever see. And I used to be one of them, one of those parents when a few years ago. The context, I mean, the link with today's lesson is prediction. So I guess when these parents or myself are watching, we are always making some kind of prediction, and or comparing the game to what we've seen professional level on TV, and you think these kids like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds are going to behave like them, and that's when you get passions can get really arise when the child doesn't do the move. So I guess we are always kind of predicting in a way, but I really found it a bit hard to actually do the exercise this week. So moving on, but I did watch the video. The video was really, really good, and I think it even I said it's like drinking from a fire hose, but it actually answered some of the questions that arose out of my own kind of paper trading this week. So some of the things I'll just say what are the things that struck me was really like what Ken has just said about the psychology of exits, all those things that and then he did the video went through a lot of exits, no lose plus dinner for 2, and then other things, and that really. So how that ties in with this week's lesson is I had a few trades where it actually went to like 1R, but I didn't have enough rules. I didn't know enough rules to say what do I do here. I do know the 2R battle drill, which means that if you get a 2R, you can kind of move your stop out. Don't let it come back a third of the way or something. That was one rule that I have. And I always use the kind of wrist boxes to just put it on the screen and then trade that way. But of course, I'm new, right? I'm not getting all the entries. Well, I'm new to Ken's system. I'm not getting all the optimal entry, shall we say? So many of my trades are just it goes to 1R and then it pulls back, and some of them you scratch. And I had this real conflict because sometimes when I enter, I would see the price moving, it will go, and then it'll go to like 1 hour, and these are like either 3 minute or 1 minute bars, and then it'll start coming back. But then I said, well, actually, I don't have anything to tell me what to do. I think it's going to come back, and I don't want to just sit there to just let it go to my 1 hour risk, because that would just And then I think in the video, there were some scenarios that Ken talked about where he said exactly that you don't want to you really don't want to make a loss in some of these. And when you're in a big winning position or more than 1 hour, you want to do these. I think the phrase was you want to lock in the little pieces, which totally resonated with me and kind of removed my conflict of I don't have any rules to do this, but now Ken says it's okay to do this. I'm sure there's some standard work behind it, which I will go and look at. So that really struck me. And of course the other one was he said was that do not believe the idea of the trade, and I think how that was explained was it's got to work immediately. If it's not working, just cut it. Ruthless risk management, as I recall. That's what that was. So that really struck me as well. So there's a lot in that video. I have to watch it again, as I have to watch this one again for the lesson. So in terms of the Fletcher exercises, which was in the thing that Ken posted, I went through the questions. There's too many to really do all of them, but I thought I'll try 1 or 2 that kind of might resonate with me, and the beliefs thing. I always struggle with that. I think even every time Van's exercises, I'll ask you to kind of write down, whatever it was. I think a Chuck or Van write down 200 beliefs I have of trading. I'll get to 10, and then I'll struggle. So that's always been a struggle for me. If someone wrote it all down and I had to choose from them, I'd probably say, okay, I can do that. But it's always been a struggle. But anyway, so one of the questions was, how many different scenarios can you hold in your mind without confirming the choice? I could be way wrong here, but I said 3. The market will either go up, down, or sideways, and can't do anything else. And how many do we need for trading in order to protect ourselves from adverse price action? So I went for less is more. I said it's either 0 or 1. Maybe I need 1 because I have to believe there is adverse price action can happen. So I think the MMRB takes care of that, and I might not even need anything else to do that. So that's my kind of answer to those 2. And I think a lot has been talked about here, and I think I'll just the last thing probably I'll bring up is I think when I was going through this exercise and this week, what's really come out and what the universe has brought to my attention was one thing was imposter syndrome. That's come up a few times in the past few weeks. I saw now, I think talked about that a few weeks ago, and it was in Ken, it was in your the notes, the storytelling notes. And certainly I think for myself, I've been thinking about, how am I thinking of myself? I think one of the things was I did struggle with was, how am I thinking of myself? I want to be a profitable trader. Do I actually believe that? Or do I have some other belief that says, that I don't believe I can be a profitable trader? I don't know, but I need to kind of look at that. I think it's cleared a lot in the last few weeks, but it's something probably to look at. And then the other thing that kind of struck me was this talk about waves. I don't know. In my I have a kind of trading group, and the leader was talking about waves, Elliott waves theory, and how wave prices move up and down, and it's like the waves. And And funnily enough, I think I'm really slow in this. I didn't. I actually started looking at the true storytelling module, which I guess is what this part is. It's not. I mean, as an aside, well, I think Ken has now the new offer is like Creativity 202, like a home study thing. And I always thought Creativity 202 was home study and this, what we're doing right now. But maybe this is the true storytelling part of it rather than the Creativity 202. So I really slow. And so I went to look at the true storytelling module. And I got to principle 2, which is talking about waves. Waves we can surf, giving us energy, and when is the moment to serve them. So I think for me, these are something I need to kind of look at. And I think waves, certainly the universe has raised it up. And yeah, something for me to go forward with. Aho.
Sono, bring us home.
Well, can you guys predict what I'm going to talk about?
I have 5 things I think you might talk about.
Okay. Right, we'll see. We'll see. So, wow. First and foremost, a little bit like Jeff, I had things that I was going to talk about, and you guys have triggered a lot. But after Ken's amazing max pain range compression segue there, I'll have to go back to my notes that I took during each of your shares, because you took me down these tangents. I didn't predict that, and I have to thank you for it. The concept of prediction, Jeff said that I'm always predicting. I'm always 1 or 2 steps ahead, whether it's a TV program or a news event or what's going to happen in the day or a conversation. A little bit like Tom One was saying about the driving, it was not predictable, but it kind of was predictable because these things happen all the time. And there's a thing that happens in my mind, which is it's not good to predict, because prediction, if you're predicting, then therefore you're judgmental, you're not being observant, you need to just let it unfold. So this whole again sort of conflict that happens, that I've just done this thing naturally. I didn't mean for the brain to just figure out what's going to happen next. I don't really care if it's correct or not. Invariably I'm always proven wrong, but it just happens. The brain just immediately jumps to a pattern, be it in behavior or plot or outcome. And what's interesting is this exercise goes on to say, well, prediction isn't all bad, because it helps develop what was the phrase they use? The narrative, your adaptability, your ability to adapt a narrative, and that's apparently a good thing. So what am I thinking about? If I think about trading, like how am I predicting and anticipating? And so, I'll start with my daily plan. I'll look at the day before. I'll start with my daily plan, which you guys have seen in the past. And then I'll do some form of scenario planning on what kind of trades might unfold depending on where we might open. And then when we open, I'll frame a trade, which is a form of prediction. So, once I'm in, it's either going to work or it's not going to work, or maybe it'll flatline. And then as time progresses, I'm still predicting and I'm still anticipating. We're 15 minutes in and I use Ken's 11 questions, but I kind of shorten them. Where could this go? Where could it fail? Where could it win? I just shorten it, and I'm in a dance in a way with price. And as long as I've managed my risk, provided it's going my way, and as long as I've sized correctly, I'm constantly predicting up until the point I'm closed out of my trade. And even then, if I'm in my time window, my trading window, I will continue to predict what happens next. So that allows me to figure out if I want to re-engage or not, or if I was completely wrong. What's fascinating then is that I'll do a quick write-up from my daily trade, and I'll post it, to the guys in Skype, or put it into my vaults. But then I've absolutely forgotten what I've done. And it can be within an hour or two, or within, by the afternoon, I don't know what I did in the morning. And, one of the worst questions anyone could ask me is, what was the very first trade you ever did? I couldn't tell you what trade I just did about, 2 hours ago. And so I've developed an Etch-a-Sketch memory. And I don't know if you guys know what an Etch-a-Sketch is. It's a little like a little toy where you could twiddle the knobs. You all saying yes? And so I wipe my memory, totally wipe the memory, and that allows me to let go and keep going. So on the one hand, that judgment side of me that doesn't like to predict because it's a bad thing, it's attached to ego, also thinks, well, I should be writing down and reviewing very consistently what my footprint looks like, so that I remember what it is I've been doing, so therefore I can learn. Because if I don't write this down and if I don't look at it, how am I ever going to learn from my loops? Surprise. Read the exercise, and it says, well, it's in your deep learning, it's in your memory banks, it's in your muscle. You do something often enough, your physiology somehow is going to remember this. The deep learning, what do they call it? The brain's deep memory. So and I think about, well, how did I get to the point where this is almost cathartic? Like you can go into a trading room and so you don't blow your account entirely, as long as you're entering on a position sizing that allows you to play. I call it play, allows you to engage. Whatever you do is okay, because you've gone in with small position sizing. And then how am I able to frame, anticipate, execute, take the hit, take the win, manage, whatever, reset and keep going? Well, if I shorten my time horizon, so I went originally from something like 30-minute charts to 1-minute charts to 10-second charts. The patterns repeat so quickly, you don't have time to be attached to what you did before. You can clear the mind and go again. So this will, I mentioned last week, I talked about cognitive load. So if you see a signal, you take the signal, there's nothing else to think about. Well, in the same way, you do that too much, then it racks up trades and commissions very quickly. But the act of framing and executing and letting go and accepting that this may come about again happens so much quicker on a shorter time frame. Now, whether that means you're at the right location and you can swing for a really good hit that will last for the rest of the day on a 10-second chart, that's clearly, noise. But it helps it helped me anyway build the ability to take a shot, manage, let go, take the shot, manage, let go. And I only did the 10-second charts on very specific, volatility events. Anyway, so it's me thinking about trading and, just reflecting, how often have I ever gone back and looked at whether my daily plan or any of my scenarios were correct? And I would say, in a month, it would maybe be a handful if they were particularly painful. So if I'd have got out too early or, just given up before it took off, then I might sit there and painfully look at what I could have learned. But all the other trades I've done and all the other frames and the drawings, I don't look at them. I share them and I hope somebody else looks at them, and then that's that. What else is there? Something that Tom Sullivan said about, you were talking about coaches and you were reflecting on remaining engaged in the game. There was a phrase that Tom used that triggered something. Good coaches keep playing and they play to win. And a lot of people play defensively. And I find that interesting because I am notorious for keeping going. Like, I will keep going. I don't know where it comes from. The only way to make sure that I'm safe is to make sure that if I'm in that mode of keeping going, if I'm feeling that there's there's something about to unfold, just keep my size really small. And there was a debate that Jeff and I used to have with another friend of ours way back when, about, and my question was always, if you do well, if you take a trade and the trade does well, and you're an intraday trader, and let's say you get 2 wins, is it correct to stop trading for that day and to say to yourself, well, I'm a good trader because those 2 trades worked out? And the response I got from this third party was always, well, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? Which didn't make any sense to me at the time, because I used to rationalize it and say, well, you're just sitting on the fence. Just because you had a good hit there does not mean that you're a good trader. Surely the next trade and the next trade and the next trade, in other words, your system over a series of, data points will give us information about whether your trading style makes sense. But now with time and with experience, I kind of look at that and say, it's actually okay to stop. If your data and your stats on your footprint show that there are times in the week and the day that you have a pattern within yourself of, getting tired and having losses or what have you, then it's okay to stop. Because ultimately, in my paradigm, you are the house. This is your game. You create the rules. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. And Ken mentioned Huberman, and I'm really grateful for him putting me on to him. I listened to one of his podcasts way back, and he mentioned something about the degree of concentration in order to be effective and sharp is like 90-minute slots. So if you're going any longer than that, you may be doing yourself a disservice. So you can go 90 minutes, depending on what your time frame is to execute. And then if you stop, it's okay. And if you're stopping on a winner, that's okay too. Everything's okay as long as it's a rule that you've set and it's a promise that you've made to yourself. And the rest of it, it's just my reaction to something you were saying. It's something that I know that I've always asked, and we still do it with Eric as well, don't we? The other final, but there might be something else, something that came to mind, which I thought I was actually going to be the only subject point of my little share, was on the subject of prediction. So there's a program that I watched a couple of nights ago. It's called Grand Designs. And it's all about how people, like couples or individuals, will have this project in mind to go and build a building. It can be a home or some architectural wonder. And when they've built it, there's often a show about the process that's been followed, and invariably, you know, there's an adventure in there, and costs have been blown and all of that. And not all, you know, at the end of it, you end up with a beautiful product, a beautiful home. And some of those shows don't always end well. Like it's not always a happy ending. And there was one in particular that really stood out to me. And I'm gonna see if I can remember it well. So it's a couple. It's a girl who's a nurse, a guy who's a cook. They both have a flat in London. They sell the flat and they go and buy a plot of land down in, I want to say, Somerset, which is like, it's a beautiful part of the country. It's a bit of a breadbasket. And this plot of land is just a field. And in the middle of the field is a dilapidated cowshed. And what they decide to do is use their ethics. Their ethics are all about sustainability, ecology, living off the earth, harnessing natural resources to power the house, water, and all of that kind of stuff. And they take this risk. They just, you know, they were like, right, let's do this. They bought this plot of land. And they speak to the presenter, and the presenter says, well, what are you going to do with all this stuff? There's all this debris from this cowshed. And it's not insignificant. It's huge amounts of concrete and metal. And the guy's like, we'll take that and we'll make sure we'll use all of that material in the building of this project. Do they have any training in building anything? And the answer is a clear no. Clear no. Do they have any architectural plans drawn up? No. Do they have planning permission? Do they understand about building regs? No. All they've done is gone and bought something for a couple of $100,000, and they're going to live a dream life. So the program continues, and the guy's like, how much time have you given yourselves to do this? And the answer is something crazy like 6 months. And the guy's like, I think you're looking more like 2 years here. And what's your budget? They talk about the budget. And, you know, the guy says, well, how are you going to go about doing this? And the guy is in the presenter, and the man says, I'm going to go and watch YouTube videos. I'm going to teach myself, you know, how to pour concrete. I'll watch a few YouTube videos, and then I will go pour concrete. And I'll do that every step of the way until this home is built. And it's not just a home, it's a home that's sustainable. So you've got all your engineering and all of that clever stuff thrown in. So the long story short is they managed to, what's interesting to watch is the philosophy of the individuals involved. The girl is very supportive. They share a vision. Neither of them have skills. The guy is a researcher, effectively. Somebody as, what did he call himself? An absolute amateur in the building world. An absolute amateur. He sees it as a game and a race, and he enjoys the entire process of laying the foundation, getting the concrete in, learning about logistics, learning about the structure, talking to the building regs guys. He does get professionals in for the roof, and the rest of the stuff he does pretty much himself, literally himself. At one point, he involves his in-laws and his extended family in the fabrication of a wall with some of the raw materials. So now he's building a story, and he didn't intend any of this, but he's bringing his family and his little community and tribe, if you want, into this world that he's creating. They managed to get married, have a 3-week hiatus. COVID hits. They have 2 children, and somehow they create, surprisingly to me, because I'm predicting that this is going to be touch and go, they have created an unbelievably beautiful home. In addition to that, the man has used all of those raw materials to create himself a kitchen from which he cooks and caters for 50 people every week on the premises. He's created a barn and also a small property, which is also sustainable, which he lets on this piece of land. And because his philosophy is all about sustainability, he's also created a small holding, like a farm, where he's growing his vegetables. And everything he grows, he's got chickens and all of that stuff, and everything that's off the fat of his land is produced, and he's using as a raw materials for the things that he's going to be serving people once a week. So he's created, much to much to my surprise, but I don't even think it was in his vision, a little community. It's literally a small holding with absolutely no qualification. And by the end of it, the presenter's like, this guy's a qualified builder. This guy's experienced. This guy's got these, not just buildings, beautiful buildings, because the whole point is grand designs, and a farm and a family. And his father has come to live with him. And so, you know, the presenter asks, well, what happens next? The woman's like, yeah, I'm done. I just want to sit here and I'm done. And the guy's like, no, I'm going to keep building. I'm actually going to build a plot on the land from where I will be laid to rest. I'll dig it myself and I'll do the catering. Anyway, so that was super unpredictable. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Don't know how relevant it is to this, but I thought I'd share. I hope.
It's craft work, right? I mean, really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. I hope.
Yeah, so I just sent you some links to Good Simple Living channel, Idaho retired cop and family, getting it done. And then Master Shi, who's the guy that did the Let It Rain. This is a new one about how to learn to navigate without a guide. And connects exactly to what you just said. And of course, every word that comes out of his mouth is gold. I'm going to hit the tones and invite you to listen to the word that comes to the surface to lock in for next week. And then I'll bring the session to a close after that. Get some soccer to play. And here we go. Hey, I'll get us started with the words. Compression. Chinlong.
Simple.
Sunal.
Gold.
Jeff.
Of the herd.
Tom 1.
Balance.
Ernie.
Boxes.
Tom 2.
Manage.
Kyun.
Waves. It's either waves or etch a sketch.
So I put in the lesson in the downloadables, I put about 3 different summaries of the MPRC, the icon you see to my above my right shoulder, but also the one-page flashcard. Also, a speech on the MPRC, a little video dialogue of it, a picture of the ecosystem, and then one that I used in the a slide that I used with the super traders yesterday about skill acquisition in the 20 hours. I think that that little video from Josh Kaufman does a nice job of laying out the difference between the two phrases or claims about 10,000 hours and 20 hours. It's 20 hours, but it's not just 20 hours. It's what you do inside it and what you do with that time and all the prep that you do. Part of me thinks that the reason a lot of things take 10,000 hours is because we learn so inefficiently that we're not prepared to learn in bursts that are targeted. You know, what he says the 20 hours actually is 30 45-minute sessions over a month that are properly constructed and spaced and supported with reflection and all that other stuff. So it's worth listening. It's a little 18-minute TED Talk, and it's on the little worksheet. And in the speech I gave to the super traders, I talked about taking his model for how to learn anything in 20 hours and just showed what that looks like in soccer. Which, hey, what's our plan, Cooper? I'm going to see him in about 40 minutes. Guard the goal, get the ball, go to the goal, shoot and score. That's right. That's what we do. You know, and plan, prepare, execute, assess. That's how we trade. Time, will, pattern, and money. That's the tactical element of every trade. Is it okay to decide? Yeah, if you decide. If your willpower says, if your analysis says, hey, I am statistically beyond the border of my daily capture and my energy level and focus is not there because I'm already thinking about should I stop, then you're talking about is the will there? No. So you don't trade because you don't have time, will, pattern, and money. But if you thought about said, no, I still am hungry, okay, then yes, it's okay to keep trading. It's okay to keep trading. It's okay to stop trading. And the standard is time, will, pattern, and money, in my view. And the pattern is plan, prepare, execute, assess. You know, there's a strong connection there. So that little image over my shoulder there, that icon should be burned into your retina. That's the whole thing right there. Max pain on any time frame, it's all fractal. Max pain that terminates in a doji. The difference between that tall red candle, or I should say deep red candle, because that's a hole in somebody's soul. It's a deep red candle. And then it turns into a doji. Do you know what had to happen for that doji to form? On the same time frame that created that huge red, the market participants changed and the hydraulics all changed to get to a moment of compressed stasis. That's the hugest shift in psychology you could ever. You know, if that was followed by a giant green candle, that is less of a psychology change than big red to doji. Because it's manic depressive and it was big down, then it's big up. It's all the same guys and they're just fighting around. But big red to doji, to go from volatility and directionality to instantaneous stop on a dime, you could not get more polar opposite in terms of market psychology. So that's all I want to say. Aho. That's my checkout too. I'm going to go play soccer. Oh, one more thing for Kyun. Hey, watch soccer for prediction. The ball wants to go to the open space. Good teams find the guy that is most open and they get him the ball fast so that he has time to plan, prepare, and then execute in that critical state. The whole team finds the guy that's most open, and then he delivers. If you got a guy that's really good at delivering the setup touch, like Pirlo, you get him open, and then he delivers the ball where it needs to be. That's the critical state. So watch Barcelona or now Man City and just predict where the next two passes are going. See the guy that's open right now and see how fast it takes them to get the ball to him. And or did the ball go somewhere else? It always goes to the guy that's the widest open in Pep Guardiola's scheme. So you want to sharpen your that's what the wife and I were looking at the Leeds or at the West Ham United and the Crystal Palace game was because both sides were doing that. We were laughing about that because I was going to talk about predicting athletic events. Watch the EPL or Italy or Spain. Any Italy because they don't run fast, so they're all about pass. It's much easier to predict in Italy, and you can't get
All
rid
right.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. I'll do that. I
Yeah.
think there is a game on
Oh.
Man City. No.
Oh, that's my actual
Oh.
checkout.
Thank you.
I'm going to check out as well. Good to see you all, and thank you for the stories tonight.
Good to see you, Tom.
You check it out. So check out on this side too.
Great, Tom.
Bunch of research I got to do for doing Larry Williams on Tuesday. Hope you guys can make it. So I'm trying to make sure I'm prepared, well prepared for that.
Good luck.
Thank
Try and be there.
Try to catch it, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Great. Have a good evening, everybody, or day.
See you guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right.
All right, I'm going to check out too. So
See you, Tom.
have a nice week.
You too.
I check out.
I'm checking out too. See you, Chandler.
See you.
Bye.